is going on, Governor? It's Chisgule here, and if you are looking for the very best combination of epics to defend your city, we've got the answer. Stick around and let's show you exactly how you can defend your city against a swarm in the best way possible. Hello my friends, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to showcase the very best combination of epics that you can use to defend your city against a swarm or otherwise. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing the subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We are also a sponsored content creator. Now, this video is working off the back of a couple things that we recently proved. First and foremost, we demonstrated that this build is among the best to use to defend your city against a swarm, or honestly, my preference would be this one right over here. Use the Sun Tzu as the primary because the dude is a beast. So if you're a low power player or new to the game and you're powering up, then guess what? My recommendation is Sun Tzu for sure is the primary on your wall. But who is the secondary, and what do you choose to pair with this guy who is awesome as the primary? And should you be worried about a swarm or a rally? I'm going to make the argument that if you're getting rallied and you're below 35 million power, you are in deep trouble anyways. You better hope that the 4-minute warning for the rally and whatever march time they have is enough warning that someone from your alliance will tell you in Discord or whatever service you use that you're getting rallied, and that you use that to use a peace shield. Because the reality is, if a high power player is going to rally you, you're in trouble. So what do you need? You need something that protects your city against a swarm. Something that stops a big T5 player from just rolling up next to your city and swarming you down, taking your resources and killing all your troops. To do that, I would recommend a couple of commanders. I went and I tested. And this works off of another video, card up in the top, where we demonstrated that this node right over here in the expedition is a really good place to test. You also could use this one or this one or this one. We used a method that is very straightforward. I'll explain it briefly without duplicating too much of what we shared in the other video. But we picked the composition of troops that represented roughly what we had in our city. We used a preset. We used the right build on Sun Tzu, who's the primary for our Garrison. And then we just swapped around, hey, who are we going to use as the secondary? We tested a whole bunch of epics. We tested Joan of Arc. We tested Garrison commanders like Herman and Pelagius and Ulji Mundak and Kusunoki. We tested even freaking Scipio. We tested our 5-5-1-2 Charles Martel, and I think the results you will find to be very, very surprising. We even threw Ethelfled into the mix. That's right. Even Ethelfled we threw into the mix. Now, here is what we uncovered. And what I'll do is I'll fire up one of these runs. Let's use our Ethelfled, because you're going to be surprised at just how good this is. As we talk about the different epics that worked really well. At the very bottom, performers for defense against a swarm includes Herman and also Pelagius. And neither of those commanders as a secondary could even survive the gauntlet that we are doing right now with Sun Tzu primary. Now, that means like they just couldn't even finish. The city would get destroyed before the time would run out. And in this game mode, you have to survive for the full duration. Now, what I want to point out here is that commanders that do area of effect damage, of course, will be really good for defending your city against a swarm. But there's some things here that really kind of break this game mode and make it not really all that representative of reality when you're testing. One of those things is the fact that these marches don't relocate to avoid your area of effect damage. A smart enemy is going to avoid the majority of this area of effect damage that you see here. So they're going to position one march in front, tanking, and 4 marches behind your city, not getting hit by area of effect damage at all. So I think that this test is not exactly representative for commanders that do huge amounts of area of effect damage and have high counterattack damage. Let me explain. The tier above our Herman and our Pelagius was commanders you would expect. Kusunoki did very well because he does area of effect damage, and he also, by the way, is going to clear negative effects, which I don't see any negative effects being applied here. However, I think they would be applied. Well, they definitely get applied if your city is getting hit. And also Ulji Mundak was in that next tier. And I really want to call attention to Ulji Mundak as a standout performer, as a Garrison commander, because his fourth skill is deceptively good. What it does is there's a 10% chance when you're hit to increase your damage by 100%. Well, guess what? You're getting hit by a lot of marches over here, and 100% extra damage for the next turn. It doesn't care about what troop type you have, which is really quite exceptional. It's a benefit that doesn't care about what troop type you have, and that's a huge boost. So that did really, really well, and I think that also would work very well against a rally. So for me, Ulji Mundak was a standout performer because if they do swarm your city with all those marches behind you, Kusunoki is going to be less exciting because his AoE is not going to hit any of those folks, but Ulji Mundak gets almost all of his benefits hitting into that one primary target. I probably would pick Kusunoki or Ulji as really great choices, and I'll call out that if you're getting swarmed by more than one player, you are in some trouble anyways. I don't know how much this micro optimizations are really going to matter. The next best performer, and interestingly here, I am surprised that Ethelflaed is not able to win this at all. The first time I ran this test, I mean, she just destroyed. It was astonishing to me how well Ethelflaed did. Let me talk about the epics I tested next. Someone who performed incredibly well, that I did not expect at all, but I thought was worth testing, was Scipio. Now, Joan of Arc, she got wrecked. Joan of Arc got wrecked. You'd think with all those different troop types in your city and all the rage, and it could be good. No, definitely didn't work. But what did work, to my surprise, incredibly well, astonishingly well, was a Scipio. And this is where I feel like this testing in this format is really just no longer representative of real-world situations. Scipio does really well because his first skill reduces damage taken by 25% and increases your counterattack by 25%. You're going to see that we generate so much rage here that we have nearly 100% uptime on this. In addition, there's a 15% chance when he's attacked to increase your attack by 100% for 2 seconds. That is bananas. It's so good. Because 100% attack boost for all troop types is crazy good. I mean, you think Isong is good on his second skill, giving 100% attack to archers for 3 seconds? Here's 100% attack to everything you have in your city. Crazy. And when you bring Isong out onto the field, you can control, I got all archers. But not in your city. In your city, you're going to have all troop types. This is busted good for a city swarm. In addition, and by the way, that can only trigger once every 5 seconds. Scipio has a 15% chance to heal for 500 factor when you're less than 40% troops. That's kind of a bad thing when you're defending your city because it's going to make more of your troops die when you're already like really low and your hospital's overflowing. So that is not so good. And this is why, although this combo tests well, I would not recommend using it for your city if you're getting swarmed. And I mean, look, I guess if you're getting swarmed by 10 people and you actually want to take it for some crazy reason, then okay, use the Scipio, right? Like you got 10 marches swarming your city, use the Scipio. But I wanted to call sort of attention to the limitations of this style of testing and to the extent that it really doesn't represent the real world situation as closely as we might like. So now you're going to see this unfold where Scipio is just a total monster. A total monster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. So we have nearly 100% uptime. There's maybe 1 second. So for every 6 seconds we are fighting, we have 5 seconds of Scipio's skill up. I mean, it's just totally nuts. And the reason that this does so well is that counterattack damage doesn't care about exactly how many troops are hitting you. In other words, some area of effect damage, like Isong's, is going to be reduced based on the number of marches that you're hitting with your area of effect damage, because the game recognizes it will be too good otherwise. But the way counterattack damage works is you deal that damage to every single march hitting you, and it doesn't matter how many marches are hitting you. Well, guess what? In this game mode, I got like 10 marches hitting me over here. I got like 10 marches, and if a huge amount of my damage is counterattack damage, then, well, I'm going to do just a ridiculous amount of damage to all these marches. So I don't think this reflects reality, but it is pretty amazing to watch Scipio in this game mode with two of his skills completely irrelevant. Third skill does damage to cities. I mean, that's not relevant here. Fourth skill makes you bring more troops. Not relevant for a city defense, but kind of nuts how ridiculously well this combo is doing, especially because a lot of my talents on Sun Tzu do extra damage for the secondary commander too. And this secondary commander has no extra skill damage to get the benefit from that. So all that to say, I think this combo is pretty nuts. Increasing your damage by 100% and then having Sun Tzu's AoE hit up to 5 targets is also kind of nuts when you think about it. So you see the Scipio did better than the Ethelfled from the last round, even though I had Ethelfled perform really well other times when I did this. Very weird. So the natural next question you might ask is, hey Chisgule, wait a minute. So if you're saying against a swarm that like Ulji Mundok is actually like a top tier choice along with Kusunoki, what about a commander like Charles Martel, where I've like maxed maybe the first 2 skills and the rest are still at 1? And the thing that's sort of weird about that, is that, you know, the Charles Martel, his second skill only boosts your infantry. And okay, 30% of stats is really good, but it's only boosting your infantry, you know? I think you are better off with your Charles Martel. And like, I think he is 5.5/1/1. I think he's better. I think he is probably better than the Epic. And I really only got to see that unfold in this game mode. Now, why is that? Let me show you what happens here. We got our victory. Let's go in. We'll hit challenge. We'll go over here. We'll swap this up. Let's use the Charles Martel. The thing that's really good about the Charles Martel against the Swarm is that the way his first skill works, yeah, it gives you a shield. That's nice. But it also gives you a damage boost for 4 seconds. And it makes it seem like in the wording of that ability that it's for the duration of the shield, and only while the shield is up. But it actually is for just a full 4 seconds. And 30% extra damage is kind of a big deal when you're generating rage as fast as we are. That might even last long enough to apply to the active skill of the Sun Tzu. It also is elevating your counterattack damage for the 4 seconds. So you can see here that the amount of counterattack damage we're doing goes up shortly after the shield is cast, which is really quite solid. So I really like this pairing on the wall. I did feel like 5.5/1/1 might just be better than the Expertise Epic, even though the second skill is all infantry stats. I felt like the first skill was so good against a swarm in particular that it is probably worth it. So here you can see just how performant this combination is. It's doing incredibly well. And honestly, like in some ways comparable to the Isong that we have that's Expertise, although you'll see the final numbers and we'll run this report or this fight for the remaining 2 minutes. I don't think it's going to do quite as well. Although, man, I'm doing better this round than I have in a lot of other rounds. The other thing I'll call attention to that is that like the build we have is not really very good for this combination. The reason is that the build we have is increasing the skill damage of, you know, like the second commander. Well, the second commander's not doing any skill damage here. But it's still just performing way beyond my expectations, actually. This might be the best ever run I have had with a Charles Martel as the secondary, as a 5.5/1/2. And what I'll call attention to is, again, if you use this game mode for testing, which I think is, you know, it's interesting to just see directionally how stuff does. I will warn you that there is a lot of randomness here. I think I'm going to end this fight with almost as many troops as I do in a battle where I have an expertise Yisong, which is kind of nuts, but most times when I ran this, that was not the case. Most times when I ran this, it did not do this well. This is crazy. In my fights where I used an expertise Yisong, I had, on average, about 380,000 troops remaining. It looks like I might have closer to 250,000 troops remaining at the end of this. So, okay, the expertise Yisong is definitely way better. But you see here that the Charles Martel performed a lot better than I expected, and the only thing I'll caution you is that, you know, you have a lot of armies hitting you here. The counterattack damage is elevated. It might not be quite as representative, but I think at 5, you know, 5-5-1-1, you're doing better. Even like 5-3-1-1, you might just be doing better with the Charles Martel. The active skill here is just so good. And you can see we are going to be down to about 200,000 troops when the time runs out. There are going to be a lot of marches left over here, which is a little bit dangerous. And the Yisong does substantially better. You can watch one of the videos that I put a card for earlier in this video here that shows you exactly how the Yisong performs. You can get a better look at that. But hey, just under 200,000 troops left is pretty solid. And you can see the difference compared to the Epic. I mean, this is pretty solid. We barely scratch by, just barely get to the finish line with Kusunoki. We barely get to the finish line with Pelagius. Here we had about 200,000 troops left. To sort of summarize, I'll say that although you can test in this game mode, some things about this game mode really don't reflect reality. I really wouldn't recommend a CPO for defending your city. I think Uljimandak does look like a standout performer as a Garrison, as a secondary to Sun Tzu, as did Kusunoki. I'll add that I really feel like a 5-3-1-1 Charles Martel is probably good enough to use as a secondary for defending your city. You know, I've got the 30% of stats over here, but I really feel like you don't need all those infantry stats. They don't make that much of a difference. It's really all about this active skill elevating your damage, which includes your counterattack damage, which is a very big deal when you're getting hit by lots of marches. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like on the video, leave a comment letting me know what you think about city defense now that you've seen this and a lot of the videos we've done recently. This is probably the last video we'll do for a little while on city defense until we get some tests back for Theodora and Yi Sun Shen, the newest commanders in the game. My recommendation still for new players is going to be using Sun Tzu primary and then work your way as fast as you can toward the Yisong secondary for defending your city. That works really well, and Yisong is so good in so many game modes. I highly recommend it. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.